welcome that. So I'd like to, if you have just a second, jot that down. I'd love to go through the room, and I'd love to hear your name. Where are you from, and what do you teach? I'm honored to introduce you to some of my wonderful students. Really glad to have you guys in the room as well. I'm sure that we'll enjoy having you as well. Can I start over here, and we'll just head this way?
I have to hold the board up.
Sure, yes, great.
My name's Shauna. I'm from Classical School of Wichita in Wichita, Kansas, and I teach PE K through 12.
Great, glad you're here.
Stacy, Ozarks Christian Academy in West Plains. I teach the progym and literature.
Great.
And the high school.
Great, Stacy, glad you're here.
I'm Mary. I'm with Trinity Christian Academy in St. Louis, and I teach grade 9, all subjects.
Great, thanks, Mary. Glad you're here.
I'm Carrie. I'm a homeschool mom with Classical Conversations in Branson. At home, I teach everything, haha. But at our CC group, I'm Essentials, which is grammar, writing, and math.
Right, great. Carrie, so glad you're here. Great.
Paul, I'm at Ozarks Christian Academy in West Plains, and I teach Bible history 7 through 12.
Thank you, Paul.
Marcy, Classical School of Wichita, and I teach drama.
Great, thanks.
I'm Candace Rakestraw. I'm from Peoria, Illinois for Aletheia Classical Christian School, and I do 2nd through 5th grade science right now with the potential of teaching 7th grade or 8th grade, whatever they decide that they want me to do. So and it's like have a teacher's license. So I'm going from like public school track to figuring out
Wow,
schools. So,
a big switch for you. Well, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for coming. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Jenny Bryant. I'm from Reynolds Academy. That's in Big Spring, Texas. So we had quite a trek here. I'm the head of school, but I teach Latin and Algebra 1 to our 7th, 8th graders.
Great, thanks, Jenny.
I'm Debbie Stone. I teach at Reynolds Academy, Big Spring, Texas. This is my boss. Love her. I teach 7th and 8th grade, pretty much all subjects except math and Latin.
I'm Jedediah Moss from Grace Classical Academy, and I teach a variety of things.
Great, thanks, Jedediah. Thanks for being here.
I'm Shanda Moss, and I work at Grace Classical Academy in Springfield, and I am the secretary.
Great,
And
thanks.
I married him.
Great.
And I love him too.
Oh.
Most days.
You're in the theme. Shanda or Chanda?
Shanda.
Shanda, great.
I'm Will. I go to school at SofO, I teach at SofO, Branson, Missouri. I teach studies in the films of Chris Farley.
I'm Eli Jackson. I'm a student here, and since I don't teach, I just thought I would show one of my hobbies or what I do. I'm a consumer of food, drinks, and Shakespeare.
Ah, good deal. Great.
My name's Ian. I teach Latin here at School of the Ozarks, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley.
I'm Bryson Franks, and I'm a student at SofO.
Great, thanks for being here. Mrs. Lambeth,
Yes.
nice to have you with us today.
I am I'm a teacher who's essentially a substitute teacher right now. I substitute in 2 classical schools. I've always loved the classical approach, and I was invited to come, and I thought, hey, that's fantastic.
Great, great, thanks. Sure.
My name is Elijah Bliss. I'm a 10th grader here at SofO, and I'm the twin.
I'm Tyus Thompson. I go to SofO. I'm a 10th grader as well.
Great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your help to get things set up. Yes, my name is Amy Martin. I am married to a preacher, so preachers' wives, whatever that means to you, it means a life of a lot of people loving on my family. I'm really grateful for the church family that we're a part of. My husband and I have 3 sons. One of them is a 7th grader, one's a junior, and then one is a sophomore here on campus of College of the Ozarks. And I might make a shameless plug right now that my oldest son is in a musical that's on campus tonight, Pirates of Penzance. My son is the Pirate King, and so...
Job, yes.
Yeah, if you know Gilbert and Sullivan, you know how spectacular that is. So really super proud to be the mom of those boys. So here we are. You saw the title and you said, The Greats Unseated. I already heard someone say, wait a minute, there's grapes? We're seeding grapes? What? It's a little confusing. My intent was for us to consider the possibility of the great books and of the great students. And how do we get the students out of the seats that they're in and plugged into their education of and the devouring of the great books. So I have a few novel ideas of what that might look like. So my intent is that perhaps there'll be something that you can rob and that you can use or tweak to make it fit what you're doing. Or maybe it will just inspire you to think of something way better. And when you do that, feel free to come and tell me or email me. I'd love to steal your idea as well. That would just be great. I intend for our time to be fun and whimsical, and what better way for that to begin with some poetry. Isn't it a good place, a good way to start our time together thinking about the greats unseated? I asked some of the sophomores if they wanted to be put on the spot. I haven't decided. Titus is shaking his head. I thought about giving you Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. Oh, mimsy were the borogroves and the mome raths outgrabe. But then I decided instead what I really wanted to do was share some Longfellow. Yes, sophomores, I do have a cheat sheet. I don't let them. My favorite poet is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and this is one you probably know, entitled Psalm of Life. Psalm of Life. Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act, that each tomorrow find us further than today. Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still, like muffled drums, are beating funeral marches to the grave. In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb, driven cattle. Be a hero in the strife. Trust no future, howe'er pleasant. Let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present. Heart within and God o'erhead. Lives of great men all remind us that we can make our lives sublime and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another sailing o'er life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing may take heart again. Let us then be up and doing with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing. Learn to labor and to wait. I don't know about you, but I struggle to remember a whole lot about my high school English class. I probably didn't call it literature or rhetoric when you were in school. At least that's not what was true for me. So I struggle with what do I even remember about my time in high school? What will my students remember about their time with Mrs. Martin in 304, right? What will they remember? And I don't know how your classes are set up. Our schedule, we have about 45-minute classes, 5 days a week, 30 weeks, give or take a little, about the number of weeks. That works out to be 112.5 hours. Or if I had 112 hourglasses like this lined up, that's how much time I would have with Bryson Franks, Eli, William, Elijah, Titus. That's how much time, in class time. Then we need to factor out snow days and then taking attendance and passing back papers and all. So we've whittled down the time even more, right? And then we have the challenge of, okay, you come to the same room, the kids have the same uniforms on. How do we differentiate? How do we make the time unique and special, right? How do we do that? How do we help them hang on to the lessons, the treasure that they can find in literature, in science, math, whatever it might be, the lessons of bravery or integrity, compassion, faithfulness? How do we go about doing that? If I were to use the analogy that the literature is the gold, right? If that is the thing that I want them to hang on to. So Mr. Mosley, Kierkegaard, and the question of despair might be the gold. Or if we were speaking to Dr. Smiley, this morning, I went to his session, he was speaking about Chaucer and Dante. I know, Eli, you were in that. So that would be the gold. My intent is not necessarily to speak to the gold. I want to speak to you about how are you going to, I got to remember I'm supposed to do this part. What do we do with the time? What do we do with the time, right? And the question then is capturing the gold. And I want to talk about 10 strategies or 10 ways that you can involve your students and hopefully help them capture the gold. So this is what my intent is. I want to give you 10 strategies. Some of them you might think, oh yeah, I'm already doing that, or oh no, that won't work. Or you might think, oh, I could tweak it this way or that way and it would be even better. That would be terrific. So that's what my intent is. I want to give you 10 strategies for increasing student involvement and gold capturing. All right? And here we go. Here's the first one. You've already been exposed to the first one. Maybe some of you already do this. The whiteboards are a spectacular way to get students involved. It's a great way for you to get everybody all at once. Sometimes I'll have students, when they come in, I'll ask them to diagram a sentence. I thought about asking you all to do that, but I thought you might just turn around and leave. I have no idea if that's something that maybe some of you would stay because that would be so much fun. I don't know. But you see, it's a way, Eli says no. It's a way that you can get everybody. I can see if everybody is with me. It kind of takes the pressure off because it's a dry erase board. We can erase it right away and move on. So it's this formative assessment that I can just keep right on tracking. So it's a great way to get everybody involved. I know Mr. Mosley uses them in Latin as well. So it can be vocabulary. That can be you're doing a mathematical calculation, any of those kinds of things. Those are very inexpensive on Amazon. But if you are, that's not a doable option, you also can just use a page protector and slide a piece of cardstock in there, and it's super easy and inexpensive way to do that. So that is one strategy. And the other thing that I have written down is buzzers. Kind of the quiz bowl buzzers. I don't know if any of your schools are involved in quiz bowls. These are going to be a little more, not quite as economical, but it's another great way to get more people involved. I have a suitcase full and I can trade kids in and out. That's a way to get out of their seats and engaged and just something novel. Sometimes it just breaks up them and out of their seats and doing something different. So for fun, I thought we could do a quiz. Are you ready? You have your whiteboards. Go ahead and erase your name. There is there's incentive on the table. I will see who's the competitive type. Okay, first one I can see. Ready? Here's the first question. Who is known as the Minotaur Slayer?
Oh, come on.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Mosley. Well done.
Oh, no.
It was Theseus. Yes, good. I should have clarified that I teach 9th grade, so that would be our ancient history. So if you are a person who's kind of visual, it's kind of this portion of my room. Then the sophomore class, we focus on world literature. So we start with Beowulf, and then second semester Shakespeare. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then my juniors, we focus on American lit. So if you're kind of a visual person like I am, there you go. But sorry, all of these questions, 9th grade. Here we go. Here's the next one. Who of the following characters fell in love with his own image? William. This one goes to William. Ready? Oh, you're at a disadvantage. I'm in your way. I'm sure you would have won them.
Can't write as quick. I'm like, are there points for second place?
And here you go. Here's the third question. The saying, take the bull by the horns, comes from Greek mythology.
Boom, that was
Eli.
That one. Another one? Are you ready? Paul, are you ready? Is this one yours?
That's Hercules.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't say it. There you go. The Homeric hero. Tamer of horses.
Hey, Mr. Mosley.
Yes, thank you. Mary and it is Mary, right?
Yes.
Good, thanks. And Mosley. Mary and Mosley, there we go. Sorry, just a couple more. Hear about this one. Do you know this one? Yes. Mary and Bryson for the nice job. Okay, here's my second strategy. Here's strategy number 2. Yes.
Can I say one more thing about whiteboards?
I wish you would.
A student is on the spot. What's the problem then? I've got one student who's doing everybody else is, what's going on with you today, So what I'll do is that student will be on the spot, but I'll tell everybody else, hey, write the answer to the question we're trying to figure out. We're all working together. Nobody's
Yeah. One can call everybody involved. That's a good one. Thanks, Ms. Okay, strategy number 2 is probably my favorite, honestly. If you don't already have your students memorizing, I encourage you to do so. I teach literature and I teach rhetoric, but I ask them to memorize either poetry or a speech. Some of my requirements, I ask it to be at least 20 years old and worth their time, in line with our school mission and values for sure. I asked them to have a patron that told me why they would like to do the piece. It helps me have some time to have some dialogue if it's something that I want them to reconsider, or if I think it's challenging enough for them, then I might redirect them somewhere else. I do ask them to choose their own pieces. I have done it some years where we're all memorizing the same poetry. I think that's great, but I also like students digging for their own material to memorize. I tell them sometimes it's a little bit like if your grandma Ruby picked out the dress that you were going to wear to that special spring party, and Ruby's taste might not be your taste, hypothetically, right? And it also forces them to dig and find something that's unique and special and that it resonates for them. So 250 words is what I ask for. I want filet mignon. I don't want a slab of dry something that they don't really understand. So short enough that they can really digest and understand it. Then I ask them to present it to their classmates. I call it a master's class. So on Friday, they all come ready. Mostly ready, to do their recitation. I draw a card, or take volunteers, and then after they do their presentation, they stand and we give them some feedback. Things that they've done well, that they could improve upon for next time. I also ask them to recite in front of lower school students. So those lower school students have an idea of what it looks like down the road. They do a lot of memorization for lower school, but my expectations, at least for this assignment, they have 25 points out of 110 are focused on the accuracy of the message, of the speech, but the bulk of it is for the presentation. I care about inflection, I care about using the pause, their facial expressions, gestures, all of those kinds of things. So yes, poetry as well as speeches. The other thing that I would say that is maybe unique is that I ask for them to retain and hang on to those pieces. So first month or so, they choose a piece to memorize, they do the recitation, get some feedback, and then, okay, in another month, I want you to have 2 pieces. And then on the day that you come, you need to have either piece ready to go. Because I don't want them to lose the work that they've done, right? Hang on to that. I think I could spend a lot of time talking about the value of filling their mental pantry with rich, valuable syntax and vocabulary and just rhythm that comes from ingesting and memorizing poetry that's just unique to the situation. So I don't want them to lose all that, right? So one of the ways that I help them do that is that they carry on, and so by the end they should have a pretty good filing cabinet full of pieces that they have memorized. And it's been fun for me over the years to see how they can make a connection, and they'll use something they memorized their freshman year and they use it in a paper when they are a junior, or hopefully, Dr. Rapachek, you might even see some pieces along the way in something they write for Dr. Rapachek. So that is probably my favorite strategy. The first one, whiteboards, buzzers. The second one, yes, please.
How often do you give them this assignment to choose a piece?
Well, the sophomores, they have about 4 pieces right now that they have memorized. I think my juniors have more like 5 or 6. So.
And do your freshmen do it as well?
Right. So they wouldn't have as many. I do let them carry some from previous years. So again, I want them to hang on to that. So that's one of the ways to do that. So.
Does your master's class every Friday?
Mostly, the schedule doesn't always afford that. Or there might be a day that I say, okay, this is a work day. I want you to go look for the piece or practice for a friend or something like that. So, yeah, great. Okay, moving on. Here's the next one. Maybe you are familiar with the game Apples to Apples. Yes, I kind of have revised this a little bit to call this Martin style. So if time allows, Eli will play at the end. Maybe for the sake of getting through these, I won't do all of these right now. But the idea is, you all know Apples to Apples. Do you know the game? Yes? Okay, so you have a stack of nouns and a stack of adjectives. I would pass out the cards, and you would have 3 cards, and I would say, I want you to find, of your 3 cards, which one is the most sublime. We'll use the vocabulary word for the Psalm of Life, right? So you get your 3 cards, and I try to identify which one is the most sublime. And I'll say, okay, you've got 1 minute to put together an argument for why yours is the most sublime. Then I take volunteers. So it's just a fun way for them to think logically, give them clear reasons, use those heads of purpose, right, from your pro-gym exercises to be able to then stand and offer an argument. So it's just a fun game that the kids, we saw the reactions, a lot of fun. The second one is a metaphor game. I sometimes, if time allows, we'll play this one at the end. To talk about metaphors, I have a bag of odds and ends, and I might, for example, pull something out and I would say, I want you to tell me, how is teaching like a fly swatter? How is teaching like, well, let's just turn to the person next to you. Come up with, give me a simile or a metaphor. How is teaching like a fly swatter? Go ahead. How is teaching like a fly swatter?
Sometimes you kill it and sometimes you miss the mark completely.
Yes. That's good. Okay, one more. How is teaching like Rotel, diced tomatoes and green chilies? Yes, sometimes you need to spice things up. Yes, thank you, Miss Texas. I've forgotten your Jenny. Yes, thank you. Yes. So another kind of creative, fun, interesting, just something different. So, strategy number 3. Apples to apples, Martin style, metaphor or simile game. Okay, number 4, the first strategy, you probably could see pretty easily when you first came in the room that I like the idea of role playing, bringing in costumes. I found this to be especially helpful with my freshman class. This year we read the Iliad first semester and the Odyssey. We're finishing the Odyssey, Lord willing, this week, or beginning of next week. Anybody else teaching the Iliad and the Odyssey right now? Where are you?
I'm doing it in 10th grade. We did the Iliad first quarter, and we just finished the Odyssey.
Okay, great. Well, I'm right behind you. What I found, at least this year with the freshmen, they were just confused about who was who and what was going on. And there's a lot of backstory when it comes to the Iliad. And I found that I pulled out a couple of old bed sheets. And so I just made sashes, okay? And I put, I made you all are the gods, you all are the Trojans, and you all are the Greeks. And so I gave sashes to each of the different groups to help kind of keep track of who is who. And then I might add in a crown for Zeus and maybe a bow and arrow for, I just lost the name. No, that's not who I was thinking about. But anyway, you could just add some other things that just helps them keep track. So every time that they would come in, they would just automatically grab their accoutrements and they were ready to go and talk about. And it helped them keep track. Oh, when we were talking about Helen, oh yeah, I can think about it and I can visualize that character. So just kind of a fun way to do that, help them keep track of who's who. Of course, we've done some work with Hamlet this week. This group of sophomores, I gave them a scene. I divided them into 2 groups, and I said, okay, here you've got this amount of time. I want you to read through the scene, and then I want you to do some editing. I want you to boil it down to just the bare bones. What do you need to know to be able to make the plot make sense, right? So then they had to be critical thinkers and try to figure out what's essential, what does this mean, what does this vocabulary mean. They had to work together. We threw in some capes and some sword play, and I think it was a fun day. I think it was a fun day for them. So I think role-playing, thinking about how can you add the simplest of costume pieces, not expensive, but how can you add those things to make your classroom more interesting. In light of that, I can make a recommendation for these workbooks. This is from the Folger Library, Shakespeare Set Free. If you're not already familiar with those, some terrific workshop ideas for teaching Shakespeare. So that's a resource that you might be interested in. Okay, my 5th strategy is the use of debates. Again, our school uses the progymnasmata, and so I'm teaching the rhetoric phase. I focus on description, characterization, thesis, and law. So the debates, even though I start that in freshmen, so we might, for example, classic, you have to ask, who's the better hero? Is it Hector or is it Achilles, right? You have to have that debate. Last year, one of the sweet, demure, gentle soft-spoken freshman came up to me after class and said, "Mrs. Martin, I really like debating." I said, "Really? Why?" She goes, "I get to argue and not get in trouble." So thinking on your and responding in a debate, and that has been a great tool, especially when you have students that are competitive. It's a great way to go. I have also spiced it up with, sometimes I will bring, spray paint a washer, put it on a shoestring, and that somehow makes it exciting. Or you could, and this also might be something that I picked up a toaster at a junk shop and spray painted the thing gold. And this is the very first trophy. This is the encomium and the invective. If you are doing the progym, you probably are familiar with that idea. So I call it the toast and roast trophy. And so I think actually William, your brother, won for the Wesley House this past fall. So yes, I did ask our headmaster if I could put this in the trophy case, and it's been sitting there. So there you go. That's just a fun way to help kids be involved and think that's a good thing. You also certainly can add your use of the thesis, not necessarily the thesis project, but the progym step of the thesis. I don't know if are you at West Plains, are you also teaching the thesis at this stage?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
This is our second year at progym, so we're moving everybody from the beginning through, so getting ready to start common topic.
Oh, great. Well, at the far end, you'll be incorporating all of those pieces. Like, for example, should one marry? Should one homeschool? Should one give to the poor? All those are the questions that lend themselves well to these kinds of debates. So, anybody else do anything with debates at your school that you would like to interject? Okay, so strategy number 6 is I do a Greek festival in the spring. Comes up in April. So once we finish reading the Iliad and the Odyssey, then I ask them to carefully craft and make their own Greek attire, borrow their bed sheets from their mom. And what this looks like is after we finish reading it, I give each of them a character, and then they write this part of the story of the Odyssey from that perspective. Then they'll memorize that, and then they will retell that. That will be, we'll actually say it for the 5th grade class this year, because it coincides with, they also study ancient Greek and Roman history. So it's a lot of fun in terms of the project. So they will write, then they will memorize, then they'll practice the delivery, and then we'll also enjoy some gyros. Titus, is that still warm? Kind of. I brought, I was just going to show you that I put it somewhere. Oh, it fell? Oh, it fell down over here. Do you all have Aldi's in Texas? Do you have the grocery store Aldi's? No. Okay, well, I was just going to show you, those of you who are in the area that have an Aldi's. It's a cheap way to do gyros, and Titus is going to pass these around. I know you just had an enormous lunch and you maybe don't care about that, but inexpensive way to do some Greek food. Give them a jar of olives, and then just pass it around. Thanks. So a lot of fun retelling the story of the Odyssey. Help them out of their seats and enjoy the literature. Yeah.
Does all these have the lamp?
Yeah, the box comes like this. I think it's like $6 for 5 of them, so it really is not an expensive way to go. Okay, so here's my 7th strategy. We're almost done. Okay, so a lot of schools in choir or band will bring in a special clinician for an all-day workshop. Our band and the choir teacher have done that. So I got the idea that it would be really fun to do something comparable, but we do an all-day Shakespearean workshop. I bring in a special clinician, and in one day, we put together a Shakespeare an adaptation of a Shakespearean play. Oh, I'm sorry. That makes it exciting. So, in the workshop, we do some historical context consideration. We do background about William Shakespeare, talk about the Globe Theatre, London. The other thing we have done is, you might notice on this back wall behind Elijah, we actually did Romeo and Juliet this year. These students are here today, got to be a part of that. This is a visual representation of the play. So the idea is then you can follow a theme all the way through, or you can follow, here's all the metaphors or the similes or the puns or whatever it might be. You're pulling out those rhetorical devices, or I've seen it done before with Macbeth, and you would use like a red marker to mark every time that there's a reference to blood, and then when you have this visual representation, you can see, okay, it's more clear to see the themes. My idea is we were going to do Hamlet. We didn't get it done this time, sadly. But there, you get the idea. The Folgers copy is the version that has all of the play on the right side. So I can recommend that if you wanted to take a look at that later. I will also tell you we have done 3 of the adaptations. The very first year we did Midsummer Night's Dream. Marcy said you just did. Did you do the full?
We did, yeah, we did, the full of Taming of the Shrew.
Great. Yeah. Well, you probably have already figured out if it's only a one-day workshop, how are you managing to do a Shakespearean play? It is an adaptation, and I don't know, one of the problems that we have found that I would think would be challenging to do a Shakespearean play is that the roles are so out of balance. So you may have one character that has a whole lot of lines, and then one kid that comes in and says, "Oh, who goes there?" Something like that. So one of the things that we've tried to do with this is to make the parts more equitable. So with retaining some of the language. So we've done Midsummer Night's Dream, we've done Comedy of Errors, and then most recently we did Romeo and Juliet. If you care about having access to copies of these adaptations, I'm happy for you to come see me afterwards. I can get you copies of these if that would be something that you think might be useful to you. Yes, sorry, one more picture. We've done, here you might see this is Midsummer Night's Dream. There's our wall, Shakespearean birthday cake, that kind of thing. So a lot of fun. Again, not expensive costumes, but just something to make the day memorable. Okay, and then here's the strategy 8. Strategy 8. I call this Night with the Bard. Our headmaster's name is Brad, and he was a little confused when I first put this on the calendar because he thought it was Night with the Brad, and he was a little concerned that he didn't know what we were going to be doing with that. But Night with the Bard. Okay, so once the sophomores are really primed and ready because we've done the Shakespearean workshop, then we've read Hamlet, then they are ready when they come back from spring break to start on this project. So I ask them to either work in a group or they can work individually to choose a Shakespearean play to read and then extract a scene. They memorize and block and then present. I spent a lot of time in the spring with some one-on-one helping them practice and coaching them. That take a lot more ownership from the spring break until that presentation. Probably one of the highlights, honestly, of the sophomores say is the time to be able to do this. You'll see that I ask them just to come in black, so I'm not worried about costumes or at all. It also comes back to things are more equitable, that I'm not trying to spend 4 months with Hamlet or something like that not everybody gets to be involved. So I can recommend this. I think this has been a lot of fun for the class.
What do they do on this night? I mean,
are
they reenacting it?
Yes, ma'am. So on the night of the performance, it's an evening thing. So the all-day clinic we do, I don't think I said this. Forgive me. So we do this workshop all day long. At the end of the day, the student body comes and they watch the performance in our auditorium. So there's a performance at the end of the day. Parents are welcome to come, but it's not necessarily intended for them. Night with the Bard is a project where the parents are invited and encouraged to come. So that's one of the big distinctions. Thanks for that. And so they each will do their scene. Mr. Mosley has agreed in the past to be one of our judges, which also increases because they're of the competitive nature. It's also adds to the fun of that.
Was she a competition?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Unless a tornado.
That is true.
Judge, like the best performance, or
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Number 9. This is The Great Gatsby. I don't know if this may or may not fit your literature that you're reading, but we read Great Gatsby after spring break, and so I asked them to come in the 1920s garb. This year, I put them in groups, and they will be doing research about a different aspect. One of them will be researching F. Scott Fitzgerald. Another group studies and brings a presentation about Prohibition, the Jazz Age, fashion, immigration. There's a whole list of things that they come to the T ready to tell about that aspect of the backstory. So it's a fun way to kick off the studying of the book. Again, costumes, food, music, just kind of a fun way to do that. Great Gatsby too. But you really could do that with any piece of literature, right? A way to build up some hype. Okay, the last one is mock trial. Are any of your schools doing mock trial? Perfect. Great. I will just say my own exposure is rather limited. I've done some mock trials in another educational in the public setting. So the mock trial that I've done since we've been here has just been in my classroom. We have done, we've taken a piece of literature. I've used the Arthur Miller's play, The Crucible. I've also used some short stories, and then given the responsibilities of prosecuting and defending different characters in the text. So again, the character might be someone that they have to read the text well enough to know where were they, what did they think, or what did they say. The lawyers have to learn how to ask good questions. So it's a great way to lead up to using all of these tools from the ProGym. It's also a possibility. Our history teacher uses quite a bit of time to focus on the Supreme Court cases throughout history that have changed America. And so another idea is to take one of those Supreme Court cases and act that out, help them think through and ask good questions. There's also a mock trial, at least in the state of Missouri, there's an actual competition. Again, I can't really speak to, I have not attended this. I know that Classical Conversations, one of their elements of, for the challenge courses is a mock trial. Is that true?
Yes, my 8th grade.
8th grade. So do you have an 8th grader yet?
No, we're on the 7th.
Okay, so it's around the corner. A lot of great things can come from mock trial. Just thinking on their feet, back to the logic, being persuasive, knowing your audience, all of those kinds of elements. So that's another thing that I could suggest. I don't know a ton about this, but I want to. I want to learn more about that and contemplate that. And so we come back. This is really my last slide. So before I make my closing arguments, on the mock trial phase, what are you doing that you could share with us that might be a help to us? What are you doing that is maybe a little unusual or is memorable that you'd like to share?
I don't you could probably think that I have our 7th graders, we learn about Greek theater, so
We learned about it in quite a bit of detail. So I have the students make Greek theaters out of sugar cubes, messy, but that's really fun. And then we learned about Roman theater, so the kids can have a choice of either doing like the Colosseum or the Theater Pompey, and or the Globe Theater later on in 8th grade. So just that hands-on thing.
I do PE, so I'm thinking of how can I help PE to help my teacher do this in the classroom. I saw this with our grammar school age, but this is the first time I've really seen it brought up to the upper school level, and I think it really, because I see all the kids in some of our upper school kids that really enjoy doing this with upper school levels.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody else?
Debbie's logic students, until we have faces, I think they approached you about acting it out. And so they designed their own little costumes, put it all together, and presented to the grammar school students. And those grammar school students just love it and eat it up. So, and then they're excited about getting to read that as well. So.
Great, thanks.
Our school did a living museum. And probably older students, their different characters from literature, and the younger students got to come around and ask about the different characters from history for literature. So, yeah, 7th grade, so a lot of Greek philosophers and stuff.
Great, thank you. You want to say something?
Well, we did a bit, and it's hard to do something like Shakespeare in a short amount of time to make sure they understand it. And so one year we did a quick read-through and tried to explain it and everything. And then in 3 class periods they had to act it out. We filmed it, but they just mouthed words like watermelon. They had to listen to it and act out what was going on. And we filmed it, and then just for fun we dubbed the voices back in. Then they read the script, so because we didn't have time to memorize and all of that, and it's still fun to go back and watch, and it's ridiculous. The lips don't match up half the time. But you can tell just by them acting it out that they understand what's going on. And so, and when they didn't, we could talk about that, and so that was a lot of fun.
Right. Were you going to say something, Mr. Mosley?
Well, I was going to say that I've done, I love the idea of a literary mock trial. I think that's excellent. But like actual competitive mock trial is really cool as well. And it's always good if you can like make contact with a lawyer in the area. I had a lawyer friend who lived in Springfield, and when we did mock trial, he came out and talked to us about like the rules of it and that sort of thing. And what a really cool opportunity to see rhetoric in action and actual career. Hear from a really cool and godly guy who's practicing as a lawyer.
Absolutely. I think that's just 5 or 6 more steps down the road from where I am. But yes, I'd love to go there. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mr. Mosley. Thanks. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Please.
One more fun, quick thing. So we read a medieval play. Why am I forgetting it right now? I'm forgetting what it's called. And it's just Shepherd's Play. Second Shepherd's Play. Medieval story, and it's about working with animals, and a lot of times it's improv, and so I'll bring in my dog, which is a lab, and she's super friendly and stuff, and then I'll make the students will perform a scene for the younger ones while trying to have the dog there who's supposed to be a lamb, and so they have to try to get her to do what they want to do, and so the kids really love that, and I think that they have they'll remember that one.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your attention. I hope there's been some bit that will maybe be helpful, or maybe help you think of ways that you can help your students be unseated. The truth is, I want my students to gather the gold of great literature. But then my next prayer is I want them to be the contributors to the great conversation. I want you to be the next William Shakespeare, or the next Mark Twain, or the next Dante, right? I want our students to contribute in that way as well. And so that's my hope and my prayer, and that your lives will be sublime as well as your students. So thanks for your attention today. Thanks.